The time must come when the imperative necessity for the holding of a vast and all-embracing assemblage of men will be universally realized. The rulers and kings of the earth must needs attend it, and, participating in its deliberations, must consider such ways and means as will lay the foundation of the world's great peace amongst men. Such a peace demandeth that the great powers should resolve, for the sake of the tranquillity of the peoples of the earth, to be fully reconciled among themselves. Should any king take up arms against another, all should unitedly arise and prevent him. If this be done, the nations of the world will no longer require any armaments, except for the purpose of preserving the security of their realms and of maintaining internal order within their territories. This will ensure the peace and composure of every people, government, and nation. We fain would hope that the kings and rulers of the earth, the mirrors of the gracious and almighty name of God, may attain unto this station and shield mankind from the onslaught of tyranny. Baha'u'llah.
Thank you. So today we're really happy to have Dr. Haideh Sabet, and she will be talking about the destiny of America and the future of the world, insights from the Baha'i writings. Dr. Haideh Sabet is a neurologist in private practice in Alexandria, Virginia, and an assistant professor of neurology at Georgetown University Medical Center. She graduated from Cornell University with distinction with a BA in the biological sciences and completed her medical school at the Mayo Clinic. She then attended Georgetown University Medical Center for her internship and neurology residency and helped establish and completed the first accredited neurophysiology fellowship program there. She's a member of the Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Fairfax County East and lives in Alexandria with her husband and son. So with that, I'll hand it off to Dr. Sabet.
Thank you so much, Peimana June. And I really want to thank the hosts for today's discussion and all of you for being here today to help give me this opportunity to talk about a topic that I've been reflecting on for a while. Just so that everyone knows, given that there is no clergy in the Baha'i faith, I'm only offering my understanding of the writings through my own personal study, and I welcome each of you to study the writings on your own to gain a deeper appreciation and understanding that comes from reflection and meditation upon the Word of God. And that empowering spiritual principle that we have of the independent investigation of truth allows each of us to have that right and responsibility to investigate truth for ourselves, and perhaps we may find new meaning in our lives that can impact not only our own thoughts and actions, but influence those of others as well. And I hope that through contemplation of our individual role in our society, we can see that as drops of one ocean, collectively, we can make a difference in the shaping of the destiny of America and how we can open ourselves to new ideas and ways of thinking and see each other as members of one human family. We can all share in the glorious destiny of our beloved country as foretold in the Baha'i writings. And in these times of immense challenge, of unparalleled opportunity, these insights that are gained from reading these writings offer us a beacon of hope and guidance. There is actually a Baha'i prayer that includes the following words: "May this American democracy be the first nation to establish the foundation of international agreement. May it be the first nation to proclaim the unity of mankind. May it be the first to unfurl the standard of the most great peace." And the author of that prayer came to the US and traveled throughout its many states. We will talk about him soon. I would like to give a brief history of the Baha'i faith for those who are hearing about it for the first time, to give context to the divine repository of knowledge from which such quotes are taken. And I hope to provide some parallels between the birth and history of this faith and what transpired halfway around the world in the United States at the same time. Aware or not, the spiritual forces that are released into the world with a new messenger of God help to add leaven to the world of being and bring a revitalizing spirit that challenges old patterns of thinking and realigns humanity with its spiritual heritage. The Baha'i Faith began in 1844 in the city of Shiraz in Iran by a man by the name of the Bab, whose name means the gate, who declared that he was a messenger of God to prepare the hearts of the people of the time for the coming of a person to whom he referred as the one whom God shall make manifest. This occurred just as the patent office here in the States was just about to close, stating that there were no more inventions to be made. And of note, on the night of his declaration in the US, on May 24th, 1844, Samuel Morse, seated in the chambers of the United States Supreme Court, tapped the code for his now famous message, quote, from the Bible, "What hath God wrought?" thereby sending the first telegraph from Washington, D.C. to his colleague in Baltimore, Alfred Vail, who accurately transcribed his communication and repeated that message back to Morse. And this is what I'm talking about when we talk about the spiritual forces that are released into the world with the new declaration from a messenger of God. It creates the arts and the sciences and even new civilizations. Back in Iran, shortly after the declaration of the Bab, such a fervor was ignited in the hearts of the people of the time that the government of Iran, very much like today, felt threatened, and the Bab was imprisoned and moved to the most remotest and desolate of prisons over the subsequent 6 years of his life until his death at the age of 30. And nevertheless, during this short time, he wrote 27 books and tablets, one over 3,000 pages long, called the Book of Divine Names, with 361 chapters. Much of his writings have yet to be translated. Most of these works were written in prison, penned by his amanuensis, who was also jailed with him. And the government of Iran, similar to the ongoing state-sanctioned persecution of the Baha'is to this day, had declared his revelation heretical, since there should be no prophet of God after Muhammad. And yet, hundreds of thousands of people became ardent believers in the Bab within a few short years. And even in the first year of his ministry, given the severe persecution of the Bab and his believers, news of his revelation spread like wildfire beyond the borders of the country of Iran, with an account of an arrest of one of his followers already received by the British Foreign Office in early 1845. And in that same year, on November 1st, 1845, again, the Bab's arrest and that of his disciples was published in the Times in London. And eventually, in 1850, the government had him executed in a public square in front of 10,000 onlookers. And it was hoped that the fervor generated from his revelation would be squashed. But in fact, it produced the opposite effect. And within a few short months, further news of his declaration of a new faith and subsequent execution had been spread yet again to England, then Scotland, and Russia, to be translated into other languages and distributed even more widely eventually to the United States. And so great was this coverage given to this new religion that in 1871, the well-known English writer and poet Matthew Arnold was able to say that the Baha'i faith, or the faith from the Bab, was one, quote, of which most people in England have at least heard the name. Just to parallel, The government of Iran has continued its incessant persecution of the Baha'i community there. And as much as it wishes to wipe out any trace of the Baha'i faith from its land, the spiritual forces that only come with a revelation from God have already been generated both within and outside of the country of Iran and only exponentially increased. Just to let those of you who are unaware of this know, there is a new Baha'i temple that just was inaugurated as of a few days ago in Papua New Guinea. And I encourage you to see that beautiful, moving experience that the meeting had in seeing this temple for the first time. In our blessed country, we see the signs of those spiritual forces moving in our history. In a historic gathering of the Women's Rights Convention held in Seneca Falls in upstate New York, 300 people gathered in July 1848 with Frederick Douglass, a freed slave, as one of 32 men who signed the Declaration of Sentiments. 68 women also signed for a total of 100 signers of that historic document. This was to pave the way for women to vote eventually in the United States. That happened in 1920. And during this time, halfway around the world, in June to July, the very month of 1848, there was the Conference of Badasht, when 81 of the Bab's followers met in a gathering, one of whom was a woman who was named by the Bab as one of his 19 disciples. Her name was Tahireh, or the Pure One, who unveiled herself in that public gathering for the first time in Iran's history. And when my family traveled to the Wesleyan Chapel in Seneca Falls, we saw the tapestry of Tahireh's unveiling with her last recorded words, quote, "You can kill me as soon as you like, but you will never stop the emancipation of women." She said this before she was strangled at the hands of a man who was ordered by the government to do this. She stands next to Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who declared the equality of rights. And this is hanging in the Wesleyan Chapel. Shortly after the Bab's execution, a man by the name of Mirza Hussein Ali, whose father was in a high position in the government of Iran and who lived a life of wealth and luxury, was thrown into a subterranean prison in Tehran simply for his belief in the Bab, and it was hoped that he would die along with some of the Bab's followers. Unlike the 20,000 who were executed within a few short years, blown out of cannons, publicly tortured, Mirza Hussein Ali was spared this due to his noble upbringing. But after 4 months in this prison, where it was hoped that he would die, he was banished with his family from his homeland of Iran and made a prisoner under the Ottoman Empire, never to return to his country again. In Baghdad, Iraq, in the year 1863, while still a prisoner, he made his first public declaration that he was the one whose coming the Bab had foretold. And he declared his new name of Baha'u'llah, or the glory of God, and stated that he was a messenger of God whose mission was the unification of the planet. He declared the oneness of God, the oneness of humanity, and the oneness of religion. And just as a reminder, this is the same year that Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring that, quote, "All persons held as slaves are and henceforward shall be free." This was eventually ratified in 1865. Immediately after this declaration of Baha'u'llah, he was banished yet again from Baghdad to be pushed to more remote lands. However, unbeknownst to the Ottoman Empire and the Shah of Iran at the time, each move brought throngs of new believers, and his teachings were spread further and further. In fact, throughout his lifetime, 40 years of which were spent as a prisoner, he wrote over 100 volumes and disseminated tablets to the kings and rulers of the time, even from the prison cell in Akka, Israel, which is the place of his final banishment and a place of pilgrimage for Baha'is around the world today. He passed away finally freed from his imprisonment in the year 1892. His eldest son, Abdul Baha, was with him throughout these 40 years of imprisonment and endured a great deal of suffering. When he was freed from the decree of the Ottoman Empire, he traveled to Egypt, then England and France, and eventually to the United States and Canada, proclaiming the message of his father to the Western world. He is considered the sole interpreter of Baha'u'llah's writings and the perfect exemplar of his teachings. And you can find many stories about his travels and interactions between people of all faiths, traditions, and strata of life on the internet. He spoke at the pulpits of churches, at synagogues, met with heads of state and people from every part of the life of the United States, through 15 states from the East and the West, from Rankin Chapel on Howard University's campus in the heart of our nation's capital, in one of the first integrated gatherings on that campus, to the entire student body and faculty of Stanford University on the morning of October 8th, 1912, when he was invited by Stanford's president on the West Coast of the United States. He spoke about the message of the unification of the planet through the infusion of spiritual principles, such as the equality of women and men and the elimination of prejudices of all kinds, which this world over 112 years later is still grappling to understand. And yet, despite the many setbacks we have faced as a nation and as a planet, we are slowly moving towards this very goal, whether we are aware of this or not. His grandson, Sholi Effendi, translated many of the writings from their original languages into English and helped to establish the administrative order of the Baha'i Faith without clergy and only comprising of prayerfully elected consultative governing bodies in every locality, country, and one international governing administrative body, the Universal House of Justice. And so what was Baha'u'llah's mission? Baha'u'llah stated that, quote, the fundamental purpose animating the faith of God and his religion is to safeguard the interests and promote the unity of the human race. This is the straight path, the fixed and immovable foundation. Whatsoever is raised on this foundation, the changes and chances of the world can never impair its strength, nor will the revolution of countless centuries undermine its structure. He said that, quote, the world's equilibrium hath been upset through the vibrating influence of this most great, this new world order. Mankind's ordered life hath been revolutionized through the agency of this unique, this wondrous system, the like of which mortal eyes have never witnessed. And in another passage, he states, a new life is stirring in this age within all the peoples of the earth. In fact, we see that every time a new messenger of God appears on this earth, all things are made new, and there is a burgeoning of the arts and sciences, and civilizations are created, founded upon those changeless spiritual principles with ever-changing social teachings that keep the two wings of humanity's progress, spiritual and material, in equal balance. And so what is the unique role of America? In the book, The Advent of Divine Justice, Shoghi Effendi stated, "The world is moving on. Its events are unfolding ominously and with bewildering rapidity. The whirlwind of its passions is swift and alarmingly violent. The new world is insensibly drawn into its vortex. Dangers undreamt of and unpredictable threaten it from both within and from without. Its government and peoples are being gradually enmeshed in the coils of the world's recurrent crises and fierce controversies. The world is contracting into a neighborhood. America, willingly or unwillingly, must face and grapple with this new situation. For purposes of national security, let alone any humanitarian motive, she must assume the obligations imposed by this newly created neighborhood. Paradoxical as it may seem, her only hope of extricating herself from the perils gathering around her is to become entangled in that very web of international association which the hand of an inscrutable providence is weaving." In that same book, in another passage, Shoghi Effendi states, "The American nation is equipped and empowered to accomplish that which will adorn the pages of history, to become the envy of the world, and be blessed in both the East and the West for the triumph of its people. The American continent gives signs and evidences of very great advancement. Its future is even more promising, for its influence and illumination are far-reaching. It will lead all nations spiritually." And yet he reminds us that the path that America must take is a long and thorny road beset with pitfalls. One of these issues that America continues to grapple with is that of racism. And referring to America's challenge to root out racism from the very fabric of its society, Shoghi Effendi stated in that same book, quote, "As to racial prejudice, the corrosion of which has bitten into the fiber and attacked the whole social structure of American society, it should be regarded as constituting the most vital and challenging issue confronting us at the present stage of its evolution. Racism continues to be a persistent and corrosive force in American society. Abdu'l-Baha, who came to the US, emphasized the importance of unity and the elimination of prejudice. Quoted in the book, The World Order of Baha'u'llah, he said, "Consider the flowers of a garden. Though differing in kind, color, form, and shape, yet the blending of these diverse flowers is what makes it so beautiful and attractive." This metaphor illustrates the beauty of diversity and the necessity of unity. And as he prepared to give one of his talks in our nation's capital on 13th Street Northwest on April 24th, 1912, at a time when segregation was still in place, Abdu'l-Baha looked at the racially mixed audience and remarked, quote, "A meeting such as this seems like a beautiful cluster of precious jewels, pearls, rubies, diamonds, sapphires. It is a source of joy and delight. Whatever is conducive to the unity of the world of mankind is most acceptable and praiseworthy." On October 21st, 1912, in Paris, France, Abdu'l-Baha further noted, quote, "When a thought of war comes, oppose it by a stronger thought of peace. A thought of hatred must be destroyed by a more powerful thought of love." And this calls to action emphasizes the power of positive thinking and loving actions. By cultivating love and understanding, we can dismantle the foundations of racism and build a more just and united society. We must strive to build bridges of understanding and cooperation, ensuring that we create a society where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. America also faces political challenges. Our landscape is marred by polarization and partisanship. Baha'u'llah highlighted the need for a higher standard of governance. He said, quote, "The vitality of men's belief in God is dying out in every land. Nothing short of his wholesome medicine can ever restore it. The corrosion of ungodliness is eating into the vitals of human society. What else but the elixir of his potent revelation can cleanse and revive it?" Just so all are aware, Baha'is do not engage in partisan politics. Baha'u'llah wrote to tablets to the rulers and kings of the world at the time between 1867 and 1873, writing to the Tsar of Russia, to Napoleon III of France, the Shah of Iran at the time, the Pope, and to Queen Victoria, among others. In one of these tablets, he stated, "Be reconciled among yourselves, that ye may need no more armaments, save in a measure to safeguard your territories and dominions. Be united, O kings of the earth, for thereby will the tempest of discord be stilled amongst you, and your peoples find rest, if ye be of them that comprehend. Should any one among you take up arms against another, rise ye all against him, for this is naught but manifest justice." Of note, that was written to Queen Victoria. Her granddaughter, Queen Marie of Romania, would later become Baha'i. Shoghi Effendi also stated, "The unity of the human race, as envisaged by Baha'u'llah, implies the establishment of a world commonwealth in which the autonomy of its state members and the personal freedom and initiative of the individuals that compose them are definitely and completely safeguarded. This vision calls for a political system that transcends national boundaries and embraces a global perspective. It involves creating institutions that promote international cooperation and ensure the rights and freedoms of all people." Abdu'l-Baha stated on June 2nd, 1912, in New York City on Fifth Avenue, at the congregation of the Church of the Ascension, that, quote, "It is very evident that in the future there shall be no centralization in the countries of the world, be they constitutional in government, republican or democratic in form. the United States may be upheld as the example of future government. That is to say, each province will be independent in itself, but there will be federal union protecting the interests of the various independent states. It may not be a Republican or a Democratic form. To cast aside centralization, which promotes despotism, is the exigency of the time. This will be productive of international peace. And isn't that what the prophet Isaiah prophesied in his book in chapter 11? Quote, "And he, the Lord, shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea." One of the spiritual principles upheld in the Baha'i faith is that of women and men enjoying full involvement in all discourses of society. When Abdu'l-Baha came to the US in 1912, 8 years prior to women receiving the right to vote, he stated that, quote, "of equal importance in bringing about international peace is women's suffrage. That is to say, when perfect equality shall be established between men and women, peace may be realized." Another thing that plagues America and the world is the issue of materialism. This poses a significant challenge. While technological and economic advancements have brought comfort and progress, they have also led to moral and spiritual deficiencies. In the book entitled Foundations of World Unity, Abdu'l-Baha warned, quote, "Material civilization is like the body. No matter how infinitely graceful, elegant, and beautiful it may be, it is dead." To counter materialism, we must cultivate spirituality. This involves fostering a balanced life that values spiritual growth alongside material success. Engaging in regular prayer, meditation, and community service can help to nurture our spiritual well-being and can help that of others. In a book called The Book of Certitude, Baha'u'llah stated, quote, "Wert thou to attain to but a dewdrop of the crystal waters of divine knowledge, thou wouldst readily realize that true life is not the life of the flesh, but the life of the spirit." Shoghi Effendi echoed this sentiment in the Tablet of Divine Justice. He said, quote, "Not merely imitating the West in its material civilization will the countries of the East attain prosperity. Rather, they must advance spiritually and follow the highest principles of truth and justice." Baha'is seek to contribute to a world built on spiritual principles. If we truly see each other as members of one human family, we cannot bear to see each other living in abject poverty or deprived of the basics of human existence. Shoghi Effendi states in The Advent of Divine Justice, quote, "The disease which afflicts the body politic is lack of love and absence of altruism. In the hearts of men, there must arise the noble feeling of brotherhood, which is the true basis of human solidarity." Another vital issue that plagues the US and the world at large are the economic divisions that we see. And so we continue to see this inequality widen with every passing day, leading to social unrest and instability. The Baha'i teachings advocate for economic justice and the elimination of the extremes of wealth and poverty. In the Promise of World Peace, written in 1985 by the international governing body of the Baha'i Faith, the Universal House of Justice, it is stated, quote, "The inordinate disparity between the rich and poor, a source of acute suffering, keeps the world in a state of instability and threatens the very foundations of society. To address these economic divisions, we must support fair policies that promote economic justice. Volunteering and donating to initiatives that assist those in need is also vitally important. By giving our time and resources to charitable organizations and community projects, we can help eliminate poverty and promote social inclusion." Abdu'l-Baha highlighted, quote, "The secrets of the whole economic question are divine in nature and are concerned with the world of the heart and spirit. True economic justice is rooted in spiritual principles and in the recognition of our shared humanity. We must strive to create an economy that values human dignity and promotes the well-being of all people. This highlights the importance of fostering a spirit of altruism and brotherhood, which is inherent in the foundations of all world religions. Baha'u'llah stated that, quote, "The earth is but one country, and mankind its citizens." The Universal House of Justice has also assured us that, quote, "World peace is not only possible, but inevitable. It is the next stage in the evolution of this planet." Shoghi Effendi also spoke extensively about the need of a new global economic order and international peacekeeping mechanisms. He envisioned a world in which economic resources are distributed equitably and international institutions work collaboratively to maintain peace and security. He said, quote, "A world federal system ruling the whole earth and exercising unchallengeable authority over its unimaginably vast resources, blending and embodying the ideals of both the East and the West, liberated from the curse of war and its miseries, and bent on the exploitation of all the available sources of energy on the surface of the planet, a system in which force is made the servant of justice, whose life is sustained by its universal recognition of one God and by its allegiance to one common revelation. Such is the goal towards which humanity, impelled by the unifying forces of life, is moving." To achieve this vision, nations must work together to establish fair trade practices, reduce economic disparities, and ensure that all people have access to basic needs such as food, clean water, shelter, and healthcare. And I'll give you an example. In the latest May 2024 edition of the New England Journal of Medicine, there is an article from Georgetown University's O'Neill Institute for National and Global Health Law entitled "Global Health Law for a Safer and Fairer World." In it, it discusses that from May 27th of this year that just passed to today, the meeting concluded today in Geneva. The 77th World Health Assembly has now completed its deliberations on adopting a historic pandemic treaty and revised international health regulations that could transform global health governance for a post-COVID era. This is because COVID and other pandemics that our world has faced has been fraught with gaping financial deficits and inequality of resources that cost millions of lives. Just to give you an example, in 2021, when countries were able to quickly process genomic sequencing and thereby create new vaccines to keep up with the rapid changes in the coronavirus genetic makeup, the entire continent of Africa only accounted for 1% of the more than 3.5 million COVID-19 samples sequenced worldwide. In addition, the World Health Organization's pandemic fund currently receives only about 5% of what it needs each year. This will not sustain the world if another pandemic occurs. I am eager to see what the World Health Assembly just decided, completing its conference in this historic treaty. The creation of international bodies can mediate such disparities of resources and enforce peace agreements. These institutions must be founded on principles of justice and equity, ensuring that the interests of all nations, both large and small, are represented. Baha'u'llah stated, quote, God's purpose in sending his prophets unto men is twofold. The first is to liberate the children of men from the darkness of ignorance and guide them to the light of true understanding. The second is to ensure the peace and tranquility of mankind and provide all the means by which they can be established. Despite the challenges of war, famines, environmental and technological threats, racism, materialism, and increased unrest throughout various countries right now, the Baha'i teachings and writings assure us that the world is moving inexorably towards peace and unity. This process, though fraught with difficulties, is both necessary and inevitable. Abdu'l-Baha envisioned a future where global cooperation and justice would prevail. He said, quote, there can be no rest for humanity until this international arbitrament is established. In his letter dated March 11th, 1936, published under the title The Unfoldment of World Civilization, Shoghi Effendi outlined a vision of the future of humankind, quote, a world civilization such as no mortal eye hath ever beheld or human mind conceived. And so as we look toward the future, the path forward requires collective effort and unwavering commitment to the principles of justice, unity, and love. The Baha'i teachings provide a roadmap for this journey, emphasizing education and enlightenment, promoting this universal education to cultivate minds and hearts committed to peace and justice, service to humanity, encouraging every individual to contribute to the betterment of society through consultation and collaboration, utilizing these methods of decision-making to ensure diverse perspectives and inclusive solutions. Each one of us has a role to play in this transformative process. We can educate ourselves and in a posture of learning, engage in community service to directly impact and uplift those around us, and practice consultation in our personal and professional lives to foster understanding and cooperation. So in conclusion, America stands at a crossroads with the potential to significantly influence the course of global destiny. By addressing its internal challenges with a spirit of unity and purpose, America can fulfill its divine destiny and lead the world towards an era of peace and prosperity. Let us heed the words of Shoghi Effendi, written in a letter dated March 21st, 1930, which is compiled in a book, The World Order of Baha'u'llah. Quote, "Ours is the duty to ponder these things in our heart, to strive to widen our vision and to deepen our comprehension, and to arise resolutely and unreservedly to play our part, however small, in this greatest drama of the world's spiritual history." Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That was amazing. So if people have questions, they can put it in the chat now. We have some time for Q&A. Can you comment on present day warfare and conflicts? How are these moving toward the period of great peace?
Thank you for that question from the UK. I am so grateful for the vision that the Baha'i Faith has given me to realize that in order for a new world order, a new revelation to have its true effect, there is a need for the old world order and the potential of any seeding of old paths of thought and methods that have been polluted and corrupted over the years must crumble. And that is what we are witnessing. We are witnessing those of us who hang dearly on old patterns of thought that are no longer applicable to today's ever-changing world. And yet, what we are given as that beacon of hope is that this is the changeless faith of God, eternal in the past, eternal in the future. So we are assured that no matter what we see in the world as signs of decay, of moral depravity, of famine, of war, of whatever humanity is grappling with, that these are necessary changes that we must make, kind of like a baby chicken that is just coming out of this shell, and it's pecking its way, and it comes to a point where that egg is no longer there, and a new civilization is reborn that is very different from what was created before. And that is because of this beautiful progressive revelation that propels humanity forward and forces us to make these changes, to make those two wings equal in humanity. And so I see this as a wonderful opportunity that humanity is currently grappling with in horrendous ways. And yet, if it only sees the humanity in each other and learns these ways of cooperation, either through unimaginable horrors that we are seeing or through consultative will, we will see through this. And that unification of the planet will happen. It may not happen in our lifetimes, but we at least can propel it forward in as small a way as we can in our own communities, just by, as I said, giving of ourselves, learning about each other, recognizing each other's differences as beautiful flowers of one garden, we can make a difference. And I will tell you, within those very borders of the countries where war is happening and raging on, you are seeing the resilience and the determination and the human spirit of brotherhood shining through.
Thank you. What is the role of Baha'is in the destiny of this country and the world?
The role of Baha'is is to collaboratively work with, and as we're asked to do, to consort with people of all faiths and backgrounds, whether they believe or don't believe, because every person is empowered with gifts, with faculties, with insights that we may be unaware. And so what our role is to engage in a posture of learning, which adds to it a level of humility to listen to each other, to draw out the positive sides of each other, to work hand in hand with people of good hearts who are seeking collaboration in their efforts to help the world. The Baha'i community has a charter, and there are certain activities that we engage in worldwide. And I have been witness to these activities and also hopefully played a part. These activities include children's classes open to people of all faiths, teaching children things like, quote, truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues, or courtesy is the prince of all virtues, and then chatting about that together with the children and understanding that and allowing those children to take those memorized quotations back to those families, to understand how each member of a family is like fingers of one hand. Then when they progress to a junior youth age, they engage in junior youth activities that Baha'is have, again, worldwide, open to people of all faiths. And this helps to allow junior youth to collaborate together, to see the problems that may be ensuing in their communities, and to be part of the solution. At such a tender age, they are taught community service. They are encouraged lovingly to work together, side by side, no matter what their background is, and to find solutions to their own community's needs. Then, as they move forward, we can engage in devotional gatherings together. We can engage in spiritual gatherings that are interactive and include quotations from all faiths, because they all give us a source of hope, a source of positivity, and give us more enlightenment about our spiritual heritage and destiny. So I encourage everyone, and this is what we do anytime we go somewhere, we call 1-800-22-UNITE, and we get to meet Baha'is from all over the world engaged in these activities that are open to people of all backgrounds.
Will America be a major player in establishing the lesser peace, as its destiny is quoted in the writings as a light for the future?
So that is really what we have been foretold in the Baha'i faith, is that America will lead the world spiritually. And I do believe it's probably due to the very nature of the foundation in which it was established, which was that of severe inequality and racism. And if we can try in our small way, and hopefully in a very large way in the future, to eliminate this as an example to the world of how we work together as members of one human family in this great nation. Yes, we have the capacity to lead the world spiritually.
The writings seem to imply that the present US form of government will need to change. Can you tell us more about this?
Luckily, I cannot foresee the future, but what I can say is that there will need to be a restructuring of our governance, and how it happens will be up to us and up to the forces at will that are pushing humanity to grapple with this very partisan political world that we see now. And as I mentioned, and I will explain, the administrative order of the Baha'i Faith is a beautiful example of how administration can happen. And we are starting to see inklings of this in the world. But in the Baha'i Faith, because there is no clergy, the administrative order is built on prayer. It is the coming together of communities to pray for those members who will be spiritually elected without any kind of, any kind of advertisement, but just in a prayerful and private way to lend their vote to those 9 members who will administer the local affairs of that community. And then nationally, we elect, again, prayerfully, we elect a member in our locality to go to Chicago and to give our vote for the 9 representatives in each nation. And then internationally, we again have members from each country gather together every 5 years and prayerfully elect the next Universal House of Justice. And any of those members in that administrative order, whether it be local, national, or international, have no strata, no elevated holiness. It is simply, these are individuals who, when they come together and they deliberate in such a beautiful, collaborative, and consultative way that starts with a prayer and starts with the understanding that we are trying to do good in the world, there are marvelous things that come from that consultation. That's what I see as being the future of governance in the world. But how that will happen will be figured out. There was a question, what is 1-800-22-UNITE? At least that's a way in the US that we can meet the Baha'is. So we can provide our name. It's just a recording. You provide your name and where in the world you're going to be. And there will be someone to connect with you, and will be able to talk to you about any Baha'i activities happening locally or wherever you might be in the world. That's how we have always reached the Baha'is.
The next question is, do you have or are planning to have a deepening for the Baha'i youth to promote the destiny of human society?
Well, I don't. But if someone wants to reach out to you and would like for me to participate in some way, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, definitely we can do that for a future session.
One thing I would encourage everyone to do is to recognize the power of prayer. There are 2 wonderful ways that we can commune with our one Creator, and that is in prayer and meditation. When we see the world grappling with what it's working with right now in all sorts of negative ways, I do believe that when we, in the privacy of our chamber, as stated in the Baha'i writings, when we utilize that incredible power of prayer, in which Abdu'l-Baha has said that man must live in a state of prayer, and just contemplate that quote just a little bit. Living in a state of prayer is very difficult, but if you can think about trying your best, when you say that prayer, when you recite it in whatever language, in whatever means you have, you are communing with a powerful, creative force that is around you, above your head, behind you, and every which way is supporting your moves, hopefully positive. And then you go out into the world and you handle the challenges of that day. I can promise you, if you started out with a prayer, you will be so much more effective, so much more kind, so much more creative, so much more loving, that each of us, just in this gathering here, can influence hundreds of thousands of people just by how we act every day. So I encourage each of us to utilize that power of prayer. It is something that many of us are maybe not aware of. And I would encourage you, you could just Google Baha'i prayers. That's what I do. Anytime I need a prayer, I have my phone and I'm Googling a prayer and I'm saying it. Because we need more prayer in the world. We need more meditation on the Word of God, be it from whatever holy book, whatever scripture it may come from, because that is God's method to talk to us, to allow us to understand our true purpose in life. So I would encourage each of us to do that.
Thank you. So it looks like that's all of our questions. Thank you so much for your talk, and yeah, it was really amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for having the forum.
So our speaker next week will be Babak Akhtieh, and his topic will be, is peace possible? So again, these talks are every Saturday at noon Eastern time, and I've put the link to our contact form and mailing list in the chat. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you, Paymana. That was beautiful. Thank you.